Hello everyone, welcome to a cEDH cast deck tech / video. On this episode, I am going to be breaking down my pet project, my favorite deck, Dawnwaker Thrasios. It has gone through a major overhaul recently, and I wanted to break down those changes. Now, for those who are really focused in on the deck, they may have noticed that these changes happened probably a couple weeks ago, close to a month at this point, but I wanted to put in the hours, I wanted to put in the testing before I officially released this video and made all the changes official so that those who are following me, following the deck, can really understand the major overhaul that the deck has gone through. Right now, you can see on the screen my Mox Field deck. If you just look up Comedian cEDH cast with a dash between COMED and Ian, that's fine. I'll obviously have the link to the deck list below in this video where you can see that and all of my decks. I keep all of them public because I just love sharing my brews with the community and everyone like that. So let's talk about this deck. So Dawnwaker Thrasios is a Thrasios Bruce Tarl partner deck. The idea behind it was when Zerda, the Dawnwaker, came out, I realized that that card was absolutely busted. Like, that, it not only does it reduce the activation of Thrasios' abilities, but it also is a combo piece. And as Braden and I mentioned in our most recent set review, it's a combo piece that is... The combo is banned in Legacy. Zerda is banned in Legacy because of how powerful that combo is, and if you you have to realize that that is powerful and that is strong. So with that combo there, I also have power artifact synergies to combo with the Grim Monolith. So the major overhaul that happened to the deck recently is originally I built it using the shell that Evolution started with, including Zerda into the mix and my power artifact into the mix so that those synergies could come to light in a shell that already existed. Over time, I've actually moved away from the original Evolution shell. So you can find this list as the alternate under the Evolution tree right now. If not, then it may have changed recently because I've actually had conversations with people on the DDB about shifting it to its own thing because of these major overhauls and changes. So right now, Evolution, 4-color Evolution on the decklist database, Alton's list, is relying on synergies with Auriok Salvagers and the Bomberman combo and Underworld Breach. That is its main line to victory. My theory behind my changes was that the individual card quality of those combos is so poor that often, after playing probably close to 100 games with the deck with those old synergies, you would have so many games where you would have an Auriok Salvagers in your hand doing absolutely nothing because you haven't seen your LED, or you'd have a Brain Freeze in hand and you couldn't combo off with Breach anytime soon, so you had to pray and then end step Brain Freeze to hope you hit a Savines and an Underworld Breach, and these were just bad cards in your hand that would not get you anything. Right now, I have taken out all of the Underworld Breach packages. I have taken out all of the LED, the Auriok Salvager combos. Those are all completely removed from the deck, making it so different from where it used to be. That used to be a focus of the deck. Now those are all gone. Now the main combos of the deck are Dockside combos. With the printing of Emil, the deck has become amazingly efficient. You can win with Emil with 4 treasures only at a base level. With Kinnan and Emil and Dockside on the board, you can win with 2 treasures. With Zerda on the field, you can win with 2 treasures. So Dockside combos in this deck just went from something you can do to being a huge focus of the deck right now. In addition, I mentioned the Monolith combos that I have in the deck. I am playing Zerda plus Basalt and Grim Monolith. I'm playing Kinnan, which combos with Basalt Monolith, and I'm playing Power Artifact, which combos with Basalt and Grim Monolith. So there's a lot of layered redundant copies of just good cards in the deck that all combo with one another. The best part about all this stuff is when you include things like the Monolith and things like that, they have synergy where they work together with things like Seedborn Muse, which allows Grim Monolith and Basalt Monolith to be used and then untapped on all of your opponent's turns, and they're nearly a Thrasios activation by themselves, and they also just win the game sometimes with Kinnan and Zerda and Power Artifact. So the synergies really layer on top of each other. But now we are free of a lot of the dead draws that a lot of the Breach combos would yield to the deck. Now, to be clear, playing Breach strategies is very good. I think Underworld Breach is probably one of the most explosive and most underrated cards in the format at the moment. I think the strategy of using Breach to explode off in the mid to late game is insanely powerful. But the way the deck was built before was that you wanted to turbo out Breach, which, in my opinion, you're never going to do that game plan better than something like an Ad Nauseam or a Consult. Like, you will never get to that quick game plan better than those decks, better than the decks playing black, which can tutor those things efficiently. So my theory behind this deck is, when I was playing the old version, I would lose too much to things like Ad Nauseam and Hermit Druid and things that just win super early in the early parts of the game. So what I did was I cut the breach lines, I cut the chaff, I cut the salvagers, things that are useless in the early part of the game, and I added more interaction. I added more pieces that would allow you to explode. I added things like Mana Vault, which can get you a turn 1 or turn 2 Smothering Tithe, which can get you a turn 2 Seedborn Muse pretty easily. And like things like that are just insane. I added a lot more X tutors to be able to get all of our combo pieces whenever we need them. I added Emil, obviously, because that's a brand new card, and it's super explosive in the deck and makes broken things happen. Which also, for those on a budget who can't play Time Twister, Emil plus Eternal Witness actually acts as a budget Time Twister, because you can infinitely flicker your Eternal Witness and actually get back your spells, therefore creating quasi-loops themselves, and you do not need to refill your opponent's hand, so you don't have to worry about silencing them beforehand. Although it's something very powerful, and you should definitely be doing that if you're going for a win. So there's a lot of really great stuff that these new combos have added to the deck. For those who've been watching the deck for a long time, you notice that there's no Freed from the Real lines in here anymore. I just think they're clunky. I've always thought they're clunky, and I was happy to get rid of them. When I first got off of Breach, I said maybe I'll put Freed from the Real back in, and maybe it'll yield some dividends. It never did. You know, the fact that you need haste, you have no way of giving that to your creatures, so even if you're in the mid to late game, you need like an untapped Bloom Tender. One thing about those combos that I need to be like really clear about is they incentivize your opponents to attack your Bloom Tenders and your Fabro Elders and your Kinnons. Without those combos there, you can very blatantly at the table be like, there is no point for you attacking my Bloom Tender except for the fact that it makes me mana. I was like, I've played in games where I've been like, look, I know you, like someone goes to attempt to remove a Bloom Tender. I'm like, I'm not playing Freed from the Real lines. There is no value in you doing that when there are more scary creatures on the battlefield. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone like Pyroclasms or something, I'm not going to be like, oh, what are you doing? You're going that all wrong. But there's no point in like wasting single target removal because it's just a mana dork. It's a good mana dork. I'm not gonna lie about that, but it's just that. It's a mana dork. It's not a combo piece. So now you are disincentivizing people from removing those pieces. And additionally, going for Freed from the Real lines, if those went wrong, not only did you lose your combo, you didn't win the game, but you also lost probably a 4-color mana producing engine or a 3-color mana producing engine, which is terrible for you. You get set back twice as much, which is, one of the benefits of this deck is like, it's not like Consult. You don't immediately lose the game if your combo doesn't go off, right? The same thing here. You want to be able to have these combos that can like continually try to go off and not get completely blown out. So now your Bloom Tenders and your Fabro Elders aren't going to get removed if you try to go for your combo. It's a lot easier to deal with the loss of a Monolith because those don't untap anyways, as opposed to a Bloom Tender or a Fabro Elder. So let's go over some of the big new cards in the deck. Here's Thrasios and Bruce. These are all dorks. One of the big benefits of being able to change was that the deck was so tight before, with including the Underworld package, the Zerta package, the Power Artifact, like all of those things. You couldn't include some basic stuff. For example, like I added an Elvish Mystic, which is just another card. It's nice to have more and more dorks. Kinnan has been insane in the deck. Not only is it a combo piece with Basalt Monolith, but if you have something like a Smothering Tithe out, any of your Mox are insane in this deck. I was able to add Mox Amber to the deck, which for anyone that's actually been able to play with Thrasios, I think it is one of the most underrated cards in our format in Thrasios decks, or in decks where your commanders are approximately 2, maybe sometimes 3 mana, but especially those 2 mana commanders where you have them almost at all times. If basically you're playing a deck where you can play Deflecting Swat and Fierce Guardianship super efficiently, you should be playing Mox Amber too. That's an opinion of mine, but I think with Thrasios specifically, like especially with Thrasios, Mox Amber feels just like another free Mox in the deck, and it's super underrated. As I said, I have Emil now, and I have Temur Sabertooth. So one of the big things that I added was, some more explosive mana, like Mana Vault. And being able to have that explosive mana allowed me to play a few more X tutors. And we're going to talk about the X tutors in a second. But one of them, especially, you can see right here, is Green Sun Zenith. So Green Sun allows you to grab a ton of amazing cards. To be honest, we could play Green Sun with it only grabbing Seaborn Muse and Bloom Tender, because those are just amazing cards to grab. But now, it grabs so many cards in the deck. It grabs Vexing Shusher, a card that just wins the game a lot of the time. Eternal Witness, a card, as I mentioned, that just opens up a ton of different combos in the deck. It can grab Faber Elder if you need value, but you just usually grab a Bloom Tender anyways. And now it can grab Temur Sabertooth. Temur Sabertooth is going in instead of Barrin because of a few reasons. One, it survives Pyroclasms a little easier. Two, as I mentioned, Green Sun Zenith being in the deck, it just adds a really efficient way to, once again, just grab your combo, put it right on the battlefield, and just never think about it again. It also opens up, as I mentioned, some loops with Eternal Witness and with Spellseeker. For example, the other day I was playing in a game where I wanted to bounce my own creature a bunch of times. I had a Spellseeker on the board, and I was able to win the game because every single turn I was able to bounce my Spellseeker, play it again, grab a new broken instant, and just continually do that until I had enough pieces to just win me the game, which was awesome. And you can't do that with a Barrin because at that point you're sacrificing all of your permanents. So you're basically down lands or mana dorks, and that line doesn't open up. Also, Temur Sabertooth combos for 1 less mana. Barrin, because you have to sacrifice a permanent, actually brings you down so you actually can't combo off unless you have 6 artifacts and enchantments on the battlefield. Whereas Temur Sabertooth, you only need to bounce Dockside, play Dockside, bounce Dockside, play Dockside, and that's only 5. So there's a lot of benefits in my mind right now for playing Sabertooth. I used to be on the Barrin train, and I played Barrin for like 80 plus games. It was really, really good in the deck, don't get me wrong. However, I just think right now, with the way the deck's set up, Sabertooth is just better. Just for the moment, at least for right now, it just combos, and it has much more efficiency, and obviously it combos faster. So that's a thing, definitely. Now, Time Twister, let's talk about that. That used to not be in the deck, because with Breach, I never wanted to shuffle in my graveyard. I always wanted the opportunity to wheel and Windfall instead, because those were just the things to do. So Time Twister is obviously a powerful card, right? It's part of the Power 9, and Time Twister loops are an important part of being able to combo with the deck now. You can do some stuff like cast a spell and then counter it efficiently over and over again to make infinite swans. That's something you can do now that you used to not be able to do. There's a lot of different stuff with Time Twister. It's a very powerful card. Also, we're playing Smothering Tithe, so like sometimes you just get there with that. It's pretty amazing. And that's basically it. It's a card I'm glad to finally have access to in the deck. Now, this is the card that I get probably the most questions about, and I've written basically a dissertation at this point between all the different people who have asked me about why I'm playing Wargate. Wargate sees play nowhere else, and I don't think that's wrong. I think it's amazing in this deck. We are a deck that only uses permanent-based combos, right? I'm only using monoliths. I grab sometimes Seaborn Muse with it. I can grab Dockside. I can grab Kinnan. All of my combos involve permanents. There are no combos that involve instants or sorceries. That being said, Wargate gets anything. Now, yes, if we were playing a deck in black, this would be awesome as a Demonic Tutor or an Imperial Seal. But one of the downsides of playing Sans Black is that you do not have access to those cards. Wargate gets you anything you need. Some great hits, I've talked about this with people, sometimes you can value Wargate as well. Sometimes you can just pay the 3 mana and get a Gaia's Cradle into play, which is a play I've talked about a lot. The good thing about Wargate, as I mentioned there for a second ago, it gets lands. So you can search your library for any permanent. And because of that, it actually opens up some very interesting Time Twister loops with cards like Emergence Zone, where you can infinitely, crack Emergence Zone, silence your opponent's Twister loop in their end step, and then be able to use Wargate to put it back on the battlefield. There's a very complicated line with that I've detailed in my primer, which you can check out obviously down below. So a lot of big changes in the deck. One of the other things, as I mentioned earlier with the Mana Dorks, is we just have more interaction now, which is awesome. Having more interaction at any time is a good thing. Being able to basically say in the early game, I'm not going to lose to someone just playing a Hermit Druid and then no one respecting it, right? That is not a thing we lose to anymore, and it's great. And was one, as I mentioned, the big thing of the deck is it just wasn't doing enough in the early game. So now I've added things like Smothering Tithe, which you can play and that's an engine people either have to answer or you eventually run away with the game. Something like Mana Vault, Mana Vault seems maybe a little odd here, but as I mentioned, it opens up our opportunities for something like, being able to play a Green Sun Zenith for a large number very early in the game because you pay for the X. Being able to play Wargate efficiently because you use that to pay into the X. Playing a Smothering Tithe, playing a Seaborn Muse. We are actually playing a good amount of X tutors. We're playing Green Sun Zenith, Finale of Devastation, and Wargate. And that's just the X tutors. We also have things that can be played off it like Sabertooth, Emil. Sometimes you can have something crazy like playing turn one, just playing the Mana Vault, and then next turn having enough mana to be like, all right, Dockside Sabertooth because you have the Mana Vault there, and it just lets you explode out of nowhere. Also, any of these new artifacts combo with Kinnan very well. The biggest thing I can say here is I really want to talk about Mox Amber. It's just so good in the deck. Being able to play a turn one, turn two Thrasios, and then also having a Mox Amber as your interaction in the early game. Like the amount of times people get really caught in decks like these with early Thrasios where they just like play a Thrasios early on, and like in your curve it makes sense, but you still have to tap out to play a Thrasios. Instead of being able to do that, having a Mox Amber there to be able to play and like have open. And to be clear, this deck especially has a good amount of legendary permanence. So Mox Amber is just always online. I've genuinely had very, very few scenarios, maybe because I played it on turn one, where Mox Amber has not been online, and then the next turn it is. So it has not let me down, and I think it's actually a pretty underrated card right now. I'm on 29 lands. I could think about maybe going to 30. The only strange new one here is Emergent Zone, which I talked about. It allows you one to combo off an instant speed. A lot of the times having instant speed advantage is pretty huge, and I'm a big fan of it right now. It could go. I could see it going and putting Ancient Tomb back in, but right now I actually really like Emergent Zone because permanent base combos obviously can't combo off on people's turns when they all tap out, but having Emergent Zone lets you take advantage of that because it looks like you're just holding up mana for Thrasios, and then sometimes you just get there because you have Emergent Zone. And it also allows you to combo off efficiently when you're going for your Seaborn Muse line, being able to have Seaborn Muse and be on like the third person's turn, and now suddenly everyone's been fighting over it, the resources are exhausted, and you think by the time that it gets to your turn maybe that player could untap and have interaction for you. So being able to combo off when you need it is really good. So these are the major changes that I've gone through with the deck. Cutting the Breach package has been pretty huge. The deck just feels more clean now. I feel like I always have a fighting chance. Like the other day I was playing in a game where I had to mulligan really, really low, and it seemed like I was really out of it. And I always had something to do. It was never like I was running out of answers. And, you can't play a control deck at the table because that's just not how the way our format works. But this is a deck that is meant to have answers at most times, and it is a deck that is meant to have play against any deck in the format, and I think that's what this is. This deck is just efficient. Now, I get a lot of questions about being able to handle stacks effects with this deck. It's pretty easy, to be honest. You have a lot of good tempo pieces that allow you to get underneath them. We have things like Wear Tear, we have blink effects that we have Blink of an Eye, which allows you to bounce any permanent. We have Swords to remove creature stacks. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. And I also have Force of Vigor in the Maybe board for if you're dealing with a lot of stacks effects in your meta and you find that that's keeping you down a lot. That is something you can go for. I have never had a problem getting through stacks with this deck. It always just ends up, cracking through the stacks piece at the right time and then just getting there. So it's been very good in that light. So these are the major changes. I think the deck is just better than it's been before, and I just wanted to make this video to let everybody know how exciting this new version of the deck is and a lot of the upgrades that we've gone through. So feel free to comment below, talk about all these things. If you are interested in picking up pieces for this deck, if you want to build it in your local meta like I have talked to many people about, please use our TCG player link. We'll keep that in the affiliate. It is our affiliate link. Keeps it below. You just have to click on the link and buy what you were normally going to buy on TCG player. So thanks everybody for watching our video, and I'm really excited to have people talk about the deck. Bye.